Welcome to the Health Fix podcast, where health junkies get their weekly fix of tips, tools, and techniques to have limitless energy, sharp minds, and fit physiques for life. One of the best things you can do to improve your health is get at least 7 hours of quality sleep every single night. I know, it's hard to get that much sleep. Your mind keeps you awake, you're thinking about things, you get uncomfortable, you wake up early, and you just can't fall asleep again. There are hundreds of reasons why you can't get 7 hours of quality sleep every single night, and I've probably at least told you 100. But hey, listen, it's super important because your body heals itself when you sleep. And if you're not getting enough quality sleep, you're increasing your risk of disease and making it harder to lose weight. Yes, weight. Would you like to know an easy way to get more quality sleep every night? Make sure you're getting enough magnesium. Believe it or not, around 75% of people don't have enough of it, which helps explain why so many people have sleep problems. Unfortunately, most magnesium supplements are not full spectrum, so they won't fix your magnesium deficiency or help you sleep better. There are actually 7 unique forms of magnesium, and you must get all of them if you want to experience its calming, sleep-enhancing effects. That's why I recommend Magnesium Breakthrough by Bioptimizers. Simply take 2 capsules before you go to bed, and you will be amazed by how much better you sleep and how much more rested you feel when you wake up. For an exclusive offer for my listeners of the Health Fix podcast, you guys want to go over to www.magbreakthrough.com/healthfix. And you can save up to 42%. Yes, that's right, 42% savings on Magnesium Breakthrough when you go to www.magbreakthrough.com/healthfix. Hey Health Junkies, on this episode of the Health Fix podcast, I'm interviewing Freddie Kimmel. He is a rep for the Amp Coil device, which we're going to be talking about here in a second. But he has quite a story of how the Amp Coil helped him to rebalance himself from chronic Lyme, from prostate cancer, and just not feeling well in general. Now, what is the Amp Coil? It's a bioacoustic magnetic field that it creates, and it works by helping to balance your cells, because every single cell you have works like a musical instrument. They have a frequency. I've talked about using tuning forks in my practice with acupuncture before, but this is a different type of tuning of your cells because it uses sound frequencies delivered via pulsed electromagnetic field, so PEMF, and it really gets your cells to tune back in and resonate in the way that they were naturally made to, because things like biotoxins, viruses, molds, heavy metals, all those things mess with our cellular frequency and cause the cells to behave in deranged manners, if you will. And what this device does is brings things back into balance. Now, before you're thinking I've gone off the deep end on this one, I tried it out for myself and I fell in love with it. I felt so good after this. I could feel my body regaining balance, that I've decided I need to integrate these into my daily practice, but also as something that I'm going to offer to patients. So I'm all in on the Amp Coil. I want you guys to learn about it, see what you think. I can't wait to hear some feedback from you guys. Let's introduce you to Freddie Kimmel. Hey Health Junkies, I have Freddie Kimmel on today, and we're going to be talking about the Amp Coil. I had the pleasure of testing it out literally a week ago on a last minute whim in the evening, and boy, was that an experience for me. So let's first get into Freddie and his story, and so we can kind of give you a little set the stage for the Amp Coil. So Freddie, welcome to the Health Fix podcast.
Doctor, it's wonderful to be here this morning. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to hearing your side of things because my experience was pretty fun, and I'm going to hold that off for a minute so that everyone can kind of hear the background here before we get into the nitty gritty. So Freddie, how did you come to use the Amp Coil device? Like, how did this all happen for you? Give us the background.
I've gotten really good at doing this in like 4 minutes, 3 minutes. I'm going to challenge myself this morning to make it even more expedited. I had been through many, many health challenges in like a 20-year period. When I was 26, really I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. That was really a huge moment of adversity. And testicular cancer had metastasized to over 9 tumors in my abdomen. I went through all the chemotherapy you could do, massive surgeries, including like a retroperitoneal lymph node dissection.
Oof.
That experience left me with, as you could imagine, for the scar tissue fans out there in the audience, wild abdominal adhesions and a reoccurring small bowel obstructions, which I'd be rushed to the emergency room. They would cut out a foot of small bowel, and this just pattern kept repeating and repeating. I think I was on my 5th surgery in 2015 when I really was like a to your knees moment. And I realized what I was doing to manage this post metastatic cancer, post treatment, wasn't working. And so I started to look at these, fringe technologies and wellness technologies to better manage pain. Really, I just was looking to get out of pain.
Yeah.
And I happened to, after a mold exposure, I also have to mention in the terrain was chronic Lyme disease. There was a lot in there. There's a lot to unpack. And
wow.
I had been through a massive mold exposure. And so I had this experience of just like, wow, all these really dramatic health things are happening to me. And in the process of being very foggy, very fatigued, not really knowing what was driving what, I saw a video for a technology called the Amp Coil, which was pulse electromagnetic field and frequency therapy and Tesla technology. And I was like, wow, this looks really cool. I listened to the founders speak about it, and I was slogging on a Stairmaster at the gym in Union City, New Jersey. And I got off the Stairmaster and I went and got my phone and I pulled out a credit card and I called the company and I bought one. And at the time it was like $11,000, $10,845. I think if I look at my credit card bill, it was the biggest purchase I've ever bought for myself in a one-time thing. And, I was super nervous about it, but I also felt so compelled. I was hearing the message of the body's an energetic body. It's an electric body. There is a way to help the body through energy, not always the physical. And I had this huge green light moment. I was like, it's a yes for me. And so I bought this technology, and that was my in. That's how I got started. Really not knowing how to use it or what to do. I got it. I started using it, 4, 5, 6, more than I should times a week. And I would say in like 4 months, like my energy was through the roof. My brain fog was gone. I just started to have the number of me having an obstruction in my small bowel just kept reducing until I had this period where I'd went like 4 or 5 months without it happening at all.
Wow.
And that's unheard of because it was an every 2-week thing. I would eat cauliflower not cooked right or anything. You could trigger it. I could twist over to grab something from the supermarket on an aisle and that would cause it. It was like so reactive and it just stopped responding that way. And, here I am, let me find wood, knock on wood. My last surgery was in 2015.
Wow.
So, and my last emergency visit for that was in 2015. I've had instances, if you've ever had abdominal adhesions and scar tissue and partial obstructions, you'll know that it's one of these things you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Mm-hmm. I've had instances where I've had pain, but nowhere the frequency. So it was a huge game changer for me. I was like, wow, look at what energy does. Look at what pulse magnetism could do. So I just wanted to, as a lifelong learner I'm a 5th generation. I'm Fred the 5th. Every Fred before me was an engineer. I worked for my dad's engineering firm, mechanical engineering, from like 13 to like 23. So I have that area of my brain where the systems approach. I'm like, I want to understand why. Mm-hmm. So for the last 3.5 years, I've studied sound therapy, bioresonance, pulse electromagnetic field, and the mechanism of action, and really understanding like what's what Why did I have that response? Why do other people have this response? So that's how I got into it.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's a huge story. And I think for a lot of people now, they may be thinking, well, okay, maybe I haven't had cancer, but with Crohn's, colitis, there's also a lot of adhesions and things of that nature. So folks are probably thinking like, wow, this could span, much, much broader of a healing base, let's put it that way, than just cancer and surgical situations. So, I think a lot of people are like, ooh, okay.
Yeah. And it's not, people don't generally get Amp Coil for all the things I just mentioned. That was just my way in. That's what I was looking for a solution for. What I've come to understand through, different certification programs and Institute for Functional Health Coaching and all the different areas I've studied about the body, set Amp Coil aside, is that healing is really a story of like electrons. Like the body is an energetic body. And when we're electron deficient, when mitochondrial function goes down, when we have less spinning electrons available for healing, the body will slowly develop these chronic conditions. And there's so many great overlapping areas of study right now in wellness, looking at the story of electron donorship. And the cool thing about magnetics or pulse magnetics is that the wave from a coil, let me just use Amp Coil. There's a yellow coil you put on your body and there's a rolling wave that comes out. The wave expands and it collapses on itself. It doesn't broadcast like a Wi-Fi router. It doesn't warm or attenuate in the tissue. The wave expands and collapses as a result of that's a magnetic wave, and it moves through the body and it does the thing, right? It stimulates the movement of electrons as opposed to like something that would move a proton in the body. So the cool thing about magnetism is it's safe. It doesn't do any harm. It's a do no harm technology. And there's really robust science behind pulsed magnetism. And then let me just set that in a bucket, because there's that, but there's also sound therapy and different frequencies and how different sounds can stimulate change in the body or create a shift in the body, which again, I remember listening to it and be like, this sounds right, but I don't understand how sound could benefit the body. And the talking point that's benefited me with understanding this is that our universe exists in an electromagnetic spectrum. There are no solids. Things appear as solid or feel different in their texture as a result of their different oscillating pattern. If you have a stained glass window that's 600 years old, eventually that window starts to droop and sag and move because the glass is moving. Things like a fingernail or hair or skin are all a different texture as a result of their oscillating pattern. Their existence is a different frequency. So everything in our universe is a different combination of moving atoms and particles. There is no solid. So the idea that we can use sound to create a more coherent pattern and bring coherence or resonance to a physical body is, now it makes sense to me. But at the time, it just sounded like so out there.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you, because I think a lot of people, let's face it, all of this energy work side of things, and, it's a little woo-woo. And, being from the Midwest, my Midwest brain always is like, I don't know about this. Now, granted, I'm an acupuncturist and I use Accutonics, the tuning forks. And I've seen those guys do amazing things. So the Amp Coil for me, I was like, I get this. This is cool, because I've seen the benefits of using the points, the Accutonics on points. And folks, if you haven't seen my previous podcast on that, check my podcast notes at drjkrauseND.com, and I will give you a whole breakdown on what that's about. But Amp Coil is a lot more powerful than just the tuning fork, is where I'm getting at here.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like I always go back to our brains being programmed with this like American mentality that more or greater power or harder, faster, stronger is better. I'm like, the more I get an energy, I think the more power is in the subtleties,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that I just want to throw that out there, because the idea that a tuning fork, and again, when you start to look at scientific literature for sound, there's great evidentiary proof in biofield tuning, or using tuning fork tones to make a change in the body's energetic field. There's a term the NIH coined in it's 1987 called the bioenergetic field. The idea that there's information around the body, and by manipulating the field with the unique sounds, we can have changes in the physical body, organ and organ function, interleukin 6, inflammatory markers in the blood, but the body, we're signaling, right? We're signaling the physical body to make a change through energetics. So I think tuning forks are amazing. The difference, or I want to say the piece that it serves, Amp Coil, is that somebody's put together hundreds of different experiences on a tablet.
Right.
So you push play and you put a coil on your body, and a coil, and a Tesla modified coil, or a wrapping of different wires, aluminum or copper, is going to broadcast a field of energy. So you have this speaker, for lack of a better term, that's broadcasting energy to the body. And as a user, you're just sitting back and receiving. Mm-hmm. You push play. Mm-hmm. So as opposed to going in and mapping the energetics with a tuning fork, you can simply receive as a home user. And then there's those two buckets, which I'm going to keep going back to. It's like I mentioned pulsed magnetism, mm-hmm. and I mentioned frequency therapy. So there is a biological benefit to the pulse magnetics, which is not present in a tuning fork. Right. It's not more or better, it's just different. So what does your body need? The benefits of pulse magnetics: the cell respirates, it breathes, it makes more ATP, nitric oxide is released in the cell. We can have an effect on the cell's membrane. There's a voltage on a cell. Actually, each cell is a battery with a net negative on the outside, net negative, net positive on the inside, and they repel each other. Our red blood cells push away and they make space as they're flowing down the capillaries. These cells at 5 micrometers is a red blood cell. I believe it's just big enough to fit down a capillary. So when it has good voltage, it's delivering more oxygen to the tissue. And this is why PEMF, pulse, the magnetic side of it, not the sound therapy, just pulse magnetics, has great 30 years of science in NIH, both in PubMed, about boosting circulation, microcirculation in the capillaries, because the red blood cells are charged and they're ready to do their job of delivering oxygen. So it is there, like the Midwest girl that wants, like, show me the science. It's there. And then we have to say, well, what's this sound therapy piece? What's that? Because Amp Coil delivers different sounds, the magnetic changes. And this is where it's not confusing, but there's a lot of nuance there. Right. As we have lower frequencies, we'll use more magnetics, because a lower frequency, or you can think this slow moving wave, is going to need a little more power to push it into the body's energetic field. The higher etheric, we can think of etheric frequencies, 1,000, 2,000 hertz, we don't need as much magnetics to move into the body's energetic field. So the magnetics backs off, and it's this dance. So really, and I just have to say this, whoever hears it on the audience, is Amp Coil a PEMF device? Not really. Mm-hmm. It's really creating a bioacoustic magnetic field, which is a internal term we really use within the company, just to define ourselves, and kind of, sometimes you need a niche to bridge understanding for somebody that's trying to learn about what it is you do.
Right. No, I like the concept of the speaker. Because you're broadcasting a whole new electronic field for yourself. And so that's going to create some balances. And I think, if I look at my experience that I had, I felt like my body was rocking from side to side. And I felt like my right shoulder started with my right shoulder, and then like my left hip. And then it kind of switched to the other side. And it literally felt like someone was moving me, and I had to look, and I was like, is Carrie doing something? And no, she wasn't there. And so I felt like something was kind of moving through and kind of rearranging almost in an interesting way my body in that moment.
I referenced you this morning because I had an iridologist come over, and she was trying it for the first time in Austin, Texas. And I tend to intuit, normally people that are into the not into it, but they've worked with the acupuncture meridians. They've done energy work. They've done adjustments to their spine. They're normally energetically more open to feeling these things in the body. And so she got up and she goes, wow, I did not expect that. I didn't expect my pelvic floor to like be swelling with a swirling energy and then go up to my head and then back into my heart where it felt like somebody was holding my heart. It's wild. But I can tell you that I've had people over and they say, is this thing on?
Yeah.
Is anything happening? I don't feel it. I don't feel it. And so everybody's energetic body is so different. And what I can say, just like training a muscle at the gym or yoga or learning a second language, this technology works through the process of entrainment. Mm-hmm. So listening to the pattern again and again, the body starts to want to listen and open up. You can attune the energetic body. You know, I'm a firm believer, like we can always, there's so much more to grow and learn and expansion while we're in a physical body. But it is something you can work with. And I love that you had that experience. And I often find healers and energetic facilitators can really tap into the experience, even one time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was pretty impressed. So let's talk about the process a little bit, because I had seen on, the promo and the website that there's this iPad, and then we end up doing the voice check. And I was so surprised how my voice actually really pooped out quite a bit. Now, granted, I was coming back from camping and being up late with friends and whatnot. So I thought, well, maybe that was it too. But what came back in terms of information was pretty accurate. So I was like, oh, okay, it's me. So let's talk about the voice recognition on the iPad that's connected to the Amp Coil software for folks a little bit, to kind of get a whole, like, how does this thing work? Because I think a lot of people are like, okay, I put a coil on myself and I'm just going to lay there, and things are going to happen. So let's give the whole experience for folks as to how it all kind of is put together.
So a feature that the creative team put on this tablet was a voice print. And really what it does is it takes a recording of the voice. I think it's 55 seconds. You do vowel sounds, you do consonants, and you're going to sustain the vowel sound. So A, E, and you can watch the computer charting all the different sine waves. From that print, we look at hits, like your top hits or the concurrent hits. And what they do is they divide the information in 3 categories. So we go nutrition, organs, and then microbes, metals, and toxins. And it's looking for frequent hits. Like if you get the frequency for a specific nutrient 5 or 6 times in a voice print, it's going to bump it to the top of the list. Same thing with an organ system, same thing with a microbe, metal, or toxin. So you get a almost like a roadmap for that day if you wanted to create a coiling experience with the voice print. Sometimes people use this. Sometimes they don't. They just go by the pathways to coiling that the team sets out. Okay. And what it does is the voice print serves, like that's interesting to me. What does a serve? It serves as an intuitive guide or information from the body. What's the body asking for today? Maybe it wants a little lung, large intestine, or heart, small intestine. And so we can just select the top hits and create our own little customized journey. The other thing it does is it's a time saver. As opposed to playing the frequency journey that's going to go through every organ and organ system, we can just say, oh, it's just gallbladder and pancreas today. Let me just do the top 2. So I have a 12-minute experience where I can just really be expedited in my time on the coil in the morning. And yeah, it's really, really neat to see in the field now how many things are coming out in again, MIT. There's a group in Israel that 98% accuracy of using the voice to diagnose different viral expressions. Wow. There's a concussion protocol in the NFL where they're going to be using the voice to be able to diagnose a concussion immediately. Not only that, but then to create a modality for what you would do for the brain to rebalance, right? Wow. Through the voice. So if you start with the Google button, you'll start to see that there is great validity, and we know it to be true. It's just like, how is this science evolving?
Right.
So yeah, another great feature on the system.
So folks who are listening, you guys, so what happens is you can, from certain practitioners, you could even rent an amp coil from their practice. But if you did purchase it on your own, now you've got it, and you can kind of guide your journey based on one, say you don't really know what to do that day, do the voice thing. And then, and then if you're like, okay, I want to go back to this particular journey, they're set playlists, if you will, is probably the best way I can say it in terms of what the amp coil will do for you based on, what you found most comfortable, maybe something you're like craving. I sometimes will find with energetic types of things, I will crave a certain like frequency. I'll create, there's something that you're like, I want that again. And so, you could do it that way as well. But the interesting thing about mine, and I'll give, full disclosure, I was camping. So yes, there was a couple of drinks, we were up late, food, camp food, you do hot dogs, you do those kind of things. Right. And so my liver and gallbladder, of course, came back as being what was off, and my nervous system, which is something that I have been working on for years and years and years. It's part of me. And so I don't know exactly what journey that she chose. I think it was a custom type of situation based on the liver gallbladder. Now, say someone else came in and was like, okay, I'm doing the voice thing, and I'm going to try that out, and I'm going to get a basic pattern. When it comes up, tell us a little bit about what their choices are based on the voice. Does it gives the liver gallbladder, I remember that. And then I remember kind of having different journeys, and Carrie chose one for me. So I want to know kind of the background there.
Do you remember what journey you did?
I don't. I was like so impressed with what happened. I was so zoned out after I left my wallet and my cell phone in the room, guys, because I was like, woo, I'm good. See you later. Bye. And so I don't actually remember which journey. So we'll have to ask her that. But it is.
Yeah. So you could, it's going to almost give you like a menu of what to pick. Mm-hmm. And like I said, they're divided in categories. So maybe you want to work on some nutritional elements. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's magnesium, maybe it's electrolytes, maybe it's EMF sensitivity. Maybe there's an organ system that pops at the top. And then there's going to be that third category, which we basically like to call like a vitality track. It's what's a microbe, metal, or toxin that's an offender for the body. And you could build a playlist off that. I would say that it's really easy to look at the voice print as a diagnostic tool. Like people want to do a voice print and be like, I have that, or this is wrong with me, and so I'm treating. And energy moves like a river. So imagine we've got our organs and organ systems. If you do a print, you're always going to have a time in the day where there's an organ system which wants love. That's the way the organs work on a clock. You're always going to have items because of the way the body assimilates nutrition that are a little lacking. Imagine the microbial diversity in the body. Right. You do a voice print. Who wants love? Is it a vitality track 21 or 33? You're always going to have somebody that's running the race and they're out front. So energy delivers that rebalance. It's like an equalizer on your stereo. Let's rebalance the sound, as opposed to saying, treating of an infection with an antibiotic. Very, very different paradigm, even though it feels the same. And I know many times, it's semantics, right? It's efficacy. It's what's working for you. We want to take that Western medicine and we want to put it into what's the energy version of this. Yeah. It doesn't always work that way because subtle energetics, quantum physics, as you know, is so easily influenced by multiple factors in the field. Intention, geographic location. What kind of magnetic resonance are you getting from the earth and that geometric location, your water, your exposure to light, all those things are going to have an influence on how your body responds to any modality. So it's really in a great way. It's multifactorial. I think the thing you have to know is the beauty of energy is that it's always moving. And so we can complement that. The upstream or the result after putting a coil on your body and tuning and toning all the chakra centers, which I would believe you did demo harmonizer, which goes through all the chakra centers, a little bit of brain reboot, a little bit of emotional release, neurotransmitter frequencies. That's kind of like the people walk away floating. They often like set down their keys and they're like, what happened? That's what I just played for somebody doing a first time. And your next 24, 48 hours, those frequencies continue to work in the body. You know, we've done very Western things like had people do, there's two different buckets for your audience. Think about a journey that's all feel good, restorative, the happy journey. And then there's something called a cleanse journey. Maybe we'll challenge the body with a frequency to get a hormetic response. When we do that, just to give everybody a picture, you can do a thermography scan of the body and look at side-by-side temperature comparisons or looking for heat intensity patterns. And you can actually see a little inflammation come up from a cleanse journey. And then what does the body's system do? The body's immune system comes in and it'll scavenge and do a little cleanup. So you can get very different downstream reactions from the body by using different ranges of different frequencies. Again, this is really in that sound therapy value bucket. And I just want to say there's many different ways to work with this tool, right? Just like there are in the gym, you know, could you go tune and tone at a very, very lightweight and go through range of motion for a rotator cuff? Or can I pick up the heaviest dumbbells I have absolutely that I can hold and try to do a 1 rep max? Right? You're going to get a different hormonal response, different circulation. You're going to get different tears in the microfibers. They're both going to add benefit.
Yeah.
Right. But it's different. So the range of sound, and I would say also, you could say the frequency in the gym, it's a great way to frame how different you could use this tool. So back to your experience, I am imagining that it was the harmonizer is all these feel good and floaty frequencies. You know, just complement what's already there. But they do work 24, 48, sometimes the cleanse frequency is 72 hours.
Nice.
So it's letting that, it's creating this, our chair, our lead of support, Lori Marcus says, you know, make the Jello, let it set. So give it just a minute before we just jump back in and do something else.
And so this is why it's not recommended to do this every single day or multiple times a day, because you want to make the Jello, let it set, let things kind of set in.
Yeah, you can do, we say 5 days a week, take 2 full days off.
Oh, okay.
And anywhere between 60 and 75 minutes. So you can definitely do multiple sessions.
Okay.
You know, you could do brain reboot with demo harmonizer, or you could do positivity and higher self. You could stack journeys, of course. Okay. You could do a cleanse, like a circulatory system with something like a balance the mind. And so you're in that hour, 70 minutes of coiling time. That's totally fine. The important thing is like those 2 days of rest, where you're going to take a couple days, sometimes less is much more. Sometimes as the energetic body is so different, sometimes people can only do 2 days a week, 3 days a week. Other people can take that energy, and I want to say they're able to channel it and make use of it. For some people, it's too much. And it's just meeting that person where they're at.
That makes sense. Sense. That's cool. Yeah, I obviously had one a week ago and definitely felt the effects for a couple days for sure, and felt very chill, because I'm like an anxious person naturally, and so for me to feel chill, it's a good thing. It's a huge thing on that level. So I think a lot of people might be thinking right now, like, Freddie, okay, so we put this coil on, you know, we've got this app, we're supposed to figure out like what we're going to do. That's a lot of thought process. Now I noticed that you guys do have, with any Amp Coil purchase, you do have a university type of situation where you get to learn about the Amp Coil and how to use it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's actually the most, from my, again, I do a podcast on technology. So I'm like a collector of all the things. and even before Amp Coil, I talk about this when I do a talk across the globe, all the things that I had, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of attempts I had made to like use technology to improve my wellness. Many of them worked. However, there's, there's like order of operations, intention behind the action that really will that can have a huge effect on your outcome, on your result. So like when we talk about education, Amp Coil is like, there's never been a technology that I've experienced with an education like this ever. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's an academy, Amp Coil Academy, which is an 8-part video series of 5-minute videos shot in 6K. There's every 2 weeks, there's a circle call called the full circle of wellness. I envision it that way, which looks at, there's 40 to 50 people on across the globe. They're like, what about this? What about this? Can I do this? This is what I'm experiencing. So live feedback calls. Every Friday, there's a new user call. So like your very basic beginner call every single Friday at like, I think it's like one East Coast. There's ambassador calls for practitioners every second Thursday. And so there's over 7 Zoom calls live a month with our team. And so you can always get on. And then Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific, we have a support team on that when you have coiling questions that you can write in through the knowledge base on our ampcoil.com, submit a ticket, and we like hit that response time. And like, I think it's like a day and a half. Wow. So it's really comprehensive. What do I play? How do I use it? We have a great manual like that steps you through, different pathways to coiling. It's very, very comprehensive. And I personally feel if you watch the Academy videos and you came to a couple calls and you put in your brain that this is a tool that I have lots of options to play, at the end of the day, it's benefiting me when I use it 4 to 5 times a week. And I have the ability to improvise here. Mm-hmm. There's not really a wrong way. You're always getting some magnetics, which we know with the biological benefits of those, the circulation, the cellular respiration, the better energy. And then we've got the bioresonance. So the sound therapy, the frequencies from our science of the biofield that we know we're just opening up energetic channels. And if I start to, get on these trainings, I go through the academy, I think in like 60 days, you should have it. I know there's people that are listening to this and the Amp Coils like, I still don't know how to use it. And even my mom's 70. My mom got one in October. So she's coming up on a year. She doesn't ask me questions. Like she's like, this is what I did today, Freddie. And, this is, we just had this experience in our household. So we went to the Wellness 2020 album. We played these things. It was like, you nailed it.
No, and your mom's 70, which I think for a lot of people that are younger will be like, oh, okay. She's 70, she can handle it. Okay, this is good. But the point I wanted to get across, of course, is all the support, because I think for a lot of people, they might be thinking like, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. But at the same time, there are a lot of functional medicine practitioners who are using this within their practice. And this is another thing that I wanted folks to hear a little bit about, because, you were saying you had Lyme. You were saying, going like Lyme, mold. These are some of in addition to cancer, these are some of the most difficult to treat conditions that functional medicine practitioners come up against. And so these folks likely are going to be on different protocols and needing some guidance in addition to this, or maybe they're just doing Amp Coil on their own. I don't know. What do you guys typically see? What's give me the scoop there in terms of pairing Amp Coil with a practitioner?
Yeah, I'd say both. People are definitely using it on their own and figuring it out. And then there's people that are leaning heavily into the team based on their lived experience of guiding 3,000 plus users with the coil. So we get a lot of data back. We get a lot of, I always look at it in a mathematical equation. Well, we keep getting these feedback. Maybe this looks like, and now we have this fancy, tracking software. So we can look at what are the requests around, like through our CRM that we use, that allows our support team to say, oh, we keep getting these for like, this is a tablet question, this is a cleanse, this is a general detox support, this is a wellness question. So we can actually look at a pie chart and see how to better guide people. I would say that, so the system is built for home use. The system was built out of frustration. Our founders, I have a great interview with the founders. It's podcast number 1 on the Beautifully Broken podcast.
Nice.
I'll send it to you. It's great to hear their story. It was really built out of frustration, out of the many people with chronic illness, mold, Lyme, MS, being bankrupt, being taken to financial ruin again and again and again. Like I take questions on Amp Coil on if you call in Amp Coil, you ask a question about the technology, you're probably going to get me. And that I hear that story. It's every other call. It's every third call. This is what we spent so far. Am I really looking at this really expensive device? And the technology was put together to try to solve that problem, that you have something in your home that works with your energetic body, and that the energetic body supersedes the chemical or physical body, that we can start to open up these pathways, and we can invite the body to remember its natural state of being. We don't need to teach the body how to grow as a baby, right? Or develop hormones, or develop like the right levels of creatine in the muscles. It just does it. The body knows. We forget, and we are blocked, and our experiences through trauma and micro traumas can send us down a weird path. I believe it's for our greatest learning and our greatest good. I don't think much innovation happens without an impetus for change. That can often be your pain to power scenario. And, so in this way, that's, they really put it like, what can we put in people's living room that they don't go to a practitioner, that they don't go to an office visit for, that, I think the creative team, that they saw people giving away their power all the time.
Yes.
And so this tool, I think that was the intention, from my understanding, that was the intention behind this tool, to put the power back into your home a little bit and not rely on the practitioner, to lean into the body's intuitive nature. Now, there are many things that are going to do that, right? We often talk about like getting up for the first 45 minutes and looking at sun, maybe not having coffee for the first 90 minutes of the day, and allowing your cortisol to naturally rise, and, being in cold and fasting, a lot of these practices that we engineer nature back in signal the body to do its own healing. The coil, I would say, is serving a healthy dose of magnetics and nature's frequencies, because we deliver in a sine wave. That's unique to Amp Coil. We're reminding the body that it does have this potential to self-correct through magnetics and sound. Yeah. And so I really think that's the mission, right? To get people using this. And we could look at all the ways in which our food system and the planet's changing, and the energetics are changing. Things are always changing. And this is a 21st century technology to really usher that empowerment piece back in. That being said, we have over 130 practitioners using Amp Coil in a clinical setting. The idea that you could stack this with a vitamin IV and get better microcirculation while we're doing that nutrient therapy. The idea to just set someone's nervous system in a great place to receive whatever passionate, upgraded wellness therapy that practitioner is going to provide. Like, do a nervous system reset before you get on the chiropractic table, or stack it with your acupuncture needles, which is really interesting experience, because the needles in the energetic bundles actually will attenuate to the frequencies coming off of the coil. So I have plenty of people stacking it that way, it's a really, really cool experience. It's interesting that the body's meridian system it's DC current. So when the magnetic pulse moves through, it's activating many of those meridian channels just by being on the coil. There's multiple ways in which people are doing this. I view it as this awesome device in the home. But again, I've got these wonderful innovators, Dr. Nick and Dr. Nicole, who are they're integrative wellness group, and they are huge into the world of biotoxin and chronic illness. They have like a rental fleet of coils. I've got other wellness clinics in California which have 5 or 6 coils, in just like a tanning salon. You go in and you coil.
Yeah.
Right. Because not everybody wants to own one, but there's more, Carrie that I sent you to, I think she has multiple coils set up in her office. So she's got a little coiling lounge. I have a side room here with 2 coils side by side, and working with Amp Coil and doing a podcast, but I have a coiling room. People can come over, and just once they get an onboarding, which I'm doing an onboarding today at like 12:30, you come use the coil when you want to use it.
Nice.
You just kind of get access to it. So I don't think everybody needs to buy one, but man, what a great tool to have in your community, and what a great little thing to set up a little wellness center. I got a woman in Massachusetts. She tried it. She rented one. She goes, I get it. I feel it. I understand what this is. How do I help? And so she bought 2 coils. She's going to have a little coiling lounge, and Massachusetts and Connecticut is super, super moldy and limey. There are so many kids. It's always amazes me whenever I go. The last year I've been to like, even in this 6 months, I've been to like 9 events. I'll often speak. I'll go through a little bit of my story, and I'll say, here's what I'm using to balance and show up the way I'm showing up, to have my energy the way I do after all these things. And I'll always from the audience, there'll be like 3 or 4 moms. My kid's 26. They've been in bed since 17. I have a 19-year-old, at 13, they literally don't get up out of the bed. They're flat. What do I, where I'm so frustrated, where do I go? And I always, I remind them that there is a way to build this kind of home wellness paradigm. And there's hope, right? It's not a magic. Again, disclaimer, it's not a magic tool for everybody. Many times it is. And sometimes it's always multifactorial. There's always going to be a little piece that you need to adjust for you. And maybe that happens, to your question. Maybe that happens better with a space holder. Not everybody's the person to grab an Amp Coil and have this in their home and figure it out. Some people want to walk in and they just like, give me it. Give me the medicine, give me the energy, give me the needles, give me the supplements that I should be doing, and let's work that way. It's really, our human design or personality types. You're going to find one row that complements you.
Yep. No, that makes sense. And I was curious, because a lot of people are going to think like, okay, can I use this and do nothing else? Like you can't go out and eat Cheetos and, go eat junk food and expect the Amp Coil to work to its highest capabilities. You've got to be doing some effort on your own. And I like that you had put in your notes for me for the podcast is really like the magic is you, and you have the healing capacity. The Amp Coil is just helping you along to kind of, like you said, help your body remember what it needs to do, how to function. But you've got to also prime the system a little bit. There is kind of where I'm going with this.
Yeah. I really like that. I really like that frame. I look at everything I do as priming. Like, again, for me, I want to wake up. I want to like brew my really, really good. I have 1 cup of coffee in the morning and it's just like the best. And I know I should wait like an hour to 90 minutes to let my cortisol naturally unfold, as opposed to spiking with caffeine. So like this morning I got up and I knew, I was like, I got to get out to that side porch. I got to unroll the yoga mat. I got to get the massage ball and, work on the pulleys and levers in my body. So my body, I know we don't think about this, but the fascia rolling over the muscles is creating this piezoelectricity. It's generating energy. So movement is life.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, whether it's movement or breath work or red light therapy or Amp Coil, I'm priming the system for me to be able to show up better. It by no means, I don't think any of these technologies bypass the human experience, which I say this on the podcast, people, it's very triggered by it, that life is pain. Life is pain. It's putting these pieces back together, these broken pieces. How you do that is really what creates the glory in your story, if you will. That for me, it's like that is the magic. It's like, how can we create more joy and more presence in this experience of being in a physical body?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we didn't have pain, and this is kind of what I say a lot, is if we didn't have pain, we had no signal that something was off. We have to go through it to know that something is awry, amiss, unbalanced. And that's where, like you're doing, embracing this kind of thing. And really, I love the concept of the Beautifully Broken podcast. It's a great name for it, because I think a lot of people, with a broken word, it's a whole, I'm broken, I'm not, my brain's broken, this is broken, that's broken. Well, yes, maybe it may be, but you can fix it. And it's a signal. The broken is the signal. And that's where you're using that to find the solution. Now, I had a question for my husband, and I wanted to address it here. He was looking at he was on mobile the other day, looking through and seeing pictures, and he saw that a couple in one of the images had the amp coil half on one leg and half on the other leg. And he goes, "Can we do it together? Does that work?" And I thought to myself, I'm like, I don't know. I got to ask on that, because I'm like, well, your energetics are different on either side. What is the amp, like, is it going to get confused because you have two different bodies going on there? So
it's not a live feedback group. A great question. Group coiling, 100%. Essentially, and this from your work working with the subtle energetics, the body's energetic field can be 4-6 feet. Mm-hmm. We often think it's like, I need to be cut tissue and go into arm to make change. And really, the body's energetic field is quite abundant. So you don't even need to touch the body. I tell people, as far as a speaker system, imagine if you're sitting next to your partner and you both touch the coil on each hip. That information is flowing into both energetic field. You're getting the full amp coil. Mm-hmm. What I'd say is your lived experience to lay by yourself and meditate is very different to lay by your partner and meditate, or hold hands and do breath work, or do an ice bath together and eye gazing. Everybody in your audience is like, what is he doing? Like all these, it's like, what do you spend your time on planet Earth doing? A lot of these things that I just mentioned that have yielded better health to me. But the point is that your bodies both get the information. You'll both get the upgrade. It'll just be different when you're coiling on your own, just like any other experience would be different. Mm-hmm. Not bad. Not on the scale. I want to take it off the wheel of life or death, out of bad or good. Mm-hmm. And just, it's different. I love coiling with my partner. We'll often run deep sleep or relax all if one of us wakes up in the middle of the night, and we'll just tuck the coil in between us. And it's really, that's the amazing one for me. I'm always experimenting with a different type of diet or food platform. And, as a result, your sleep will change. Yeah. So if I wake up in the middle of the night, I'll often grab that coil and go to the deep sleep circadian rhythm reset, or relax all if I wake up with a little anxiety. And that for both of us, we both pass out.
Nice.
And our heart rate variability, which is the time between successive heartbeats, always increases. You always see a spike on your, I wear BioStrap is the metric that I use. There's the Oura Ring, there's the Apple Watch. There's so many now, Hanu Health, Whoop. Yeah. They all do a great job at looking at, well, what is your nervous system saying? But that's one thing that Amp Coil really knocks out of the park, above and beyond.
And of course, that was one of the things I reached out to you about first, since I have a lot of folks who are athletes that listen to this. I have a lot of folks who are in the menopausal range who don't sleep well. And, how does the Amp Coil play into that? And one of the things that I've spent quite a few years trying to explain to people about your heart rate variability, your nervous system has so much to do with the sleep, more than taking the melatonin, finding the right hormone balance, all these things. So it's cool to hear you say that if you wake up in the middle of the night, you're using the Amp Coil to help basically reset nervous system back in.
Yeah. And you can use, it might be hormone harmony that helps you sleep, might be headache help. You know, it might be the one of the last steps in the general detox album. It might be a cleanse. You might run the resonant frequency for Epstein-Barr, maybe many times a cleanse journey, or to go back, a resonant frequency that would challenge the system. Many times those knock me out, and I'll sleep with those, where other journeys are going to energize me. And I just have to be, I'm like, I as a guy, I find sometimes guys get more stimulated at night with the coil, where women often it knocks them out, down regulation. So it just depends, you know, it's so different. But the net is there are many ways to use the tool, and you just have to be, you know, excited to go explore and learn.
And play with it. I think that's the biggest thing, exploring, being open to try things. Obviously, this is a great tool for biohackers, since we are of a nature of trying to figure things out. Now, there are some contraindications, and I definitely want to talk about that.
Yeah.
So folks have that, you know, wide open and understand. So explain to us some of the contraindications of why you wouldn't want to use an Amp Coil and why it wouldn't be a fit for you.
Great. So number one is a pacemaker. A pacemaker is going to be implanted to regulate the beats of the heart, and it has a battery in it. And pacemakers are generally not cleared for an MRI machine. Now, they do have new versions of this that I think are MRI proof, but that's a counterindication because Amp Coil is generating a magnetic field. The other one, that's the big one. The other one is pregnancy. And more so that you have an evolving energetic life form, and generally many types of energetic modalities are not recommended during pregnancy. My Reiki instructors, like, you know, while a person is going through their pregnancy, that's not a great time to work on the body. So I know we say wait till you're done with your term, your term of pregnancy, and then go ahead and resume coiling. That's really it. You know, people always ask about joint replacements. I've had my knees, my hips. I have a screw on my shoulder. All those things are fine. They're mostly ferrous metals. They're non-magnetic, implanted into the body, so those are going to be okay. We do tell people that if you've got cracked, compromised, like lots of mercury in your mouth, there's journeys that are going to have resonant frequencies to help the body detoxify metal. And that you might just want to take a binder or have some chlorella in your mouth, or if you're going through like removing fillings and you're doing a lot of like dental work, maybe just pause of doing those mercury detox journeys while you're going through that procedure. You know, it's pretty intuitive. But really just pregnancy and the pacemaker.
Gotcha. Noted. Yeah. Everybody hears that. Then one last question for you. Because the Amp Coil is like a speaker, how does it affect your animals? I have a critter who has chronic kidney disease, and he's had a traumatic life. He's a rescue. And I was thinking to myself, boy, I think this could help my little guy too. So having him in the room, of course, is something I was wanting to do. Have you had any folks working with the Amp Coil with their dogs or horses or any animals in this case?
Yeah, I've got this one on my Instagram where the place I stayed in the pandemic, there's this dog like on his back, spread eagle, and just like there's like a coil on his belly. We at Amp Coil, we remind people that the software is written for human beings and balanced for human beings. So that's who we create it for. At the end of the day, it's what you want to do with your technology is up to you. We have many people that say the second they turn it on, their cats and dogs run to them. The science of animals and magnetics and frequency is really profound. There's no placebo in an animal. They generally respond very, very well. I'll speak in generalities around sound and magnetics, not Amp Coil. There's lots of science in the equine industry for pulse magnetics, and same with, furry friends are puppies that absolutely like benefit from using pulse magnetics. And just to remember that Amp Coil is a balance of sound and magnetics, really this bioacoustic magnetic field. So it's a little different than a PEMF device. And many of I have owners sending me pictures all the time of their little furry friends, jumping up and coiling with them and benefiting. And yeah, I definitely, I do have some veterinarians that have the coil, and they're like, oh, blah, blah, blah loves it. And this is really wild. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested. Obviously, I'm going to folks who are listening, those of you who are involved in my practice, you guys, I will be getting an Amp Coil, so stay tuned for that. And then, of course, I would love to get some more time under my belt with the Amp Coil, Freddie, and have you back on and talk a little bit more specifics on my own N of 1 studies that I will be doing, and also with my critter that I'm trying to figure out how to get him to thrive with kidney disease. So I've got lots of things I'm thinking about.
Great. I probably have some good suggestions for you. And the other cool thing about, a human optimizer, a biohacker, there's so many ways in which we can improvise and stack different modalities with the coil. The body being an energetic body, healing being a story of abundant electrons. We need the building blocks before we move energy. So mineral balance is like huge for people. Huge. What a great component to really amplify your journey into sound and magnetics. Hydration. The body from a molecular standpoint, people argue 98, 99% water. But really, I like to say that it's an electrolytic soup.
Yeah.
That we're all these, where there's this electrolyte balance, and all those things are going to allow the body to have more energy. And then the biggest one that I find in subtle energetics and quantum, I want to say, I don't want to get my intuitive set is just to say quantum medicine, sound therapy. I know it's not medical, but I just got that hit, is that intention. The whether it's a space holder or your intention before you do the work is profound. And this is scientifically validated. And even though it makes some people upset, why does my intention have an effect on the outcome? That's placebo. It's the nocebo. It's like the power that we don't really want to witness. Towards Einstein's death, he had a great regret, in which, looking when he was developing all his theories on the evolving quantum universe, that he didn't take a look at this thing called the spooky reality. That's mentioned in many books on his deathbed. And it's this idea of now we can sort of name quantum entanglement, in which two particles touch, they meet, they separate, they're on the other side of the globe. Now, if we treat particle A with a frequency, particle B experiences the benefit. So there's this thing to reality, which I know we're all in physical bodies and we just want to say, no, it's very Newtonian. Like, I push you, you fall. It's not always that way. There's more to it than that. So I'll just put all that in a big container and say, when you're working with energy, acupuncture, Reiki, Amp Coil, what's your intention? What are you going to work on? What do you want to move? What are you open to moving? How much healing are you open to? I find the more that I play with that, the more profound results I get, not only on me, but with people I'm working with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, you have to set, the intention has to be set and said out loud. And that's typically why when people come in to see me, I'll be like, what are we working on today? And a lot of times they're like, well, same thing. It's like, okay, say it out loud. And maybe I'll have to say it. I think a lot of my patients probably think I'm a nut sometimes, but that's where I'm going with it. It's why I say it. It's why I ask. It's huge. It's huge. And I think there's a lot of potential with the Amp Coil. I was really impressed with my first round with it. And I've been in this game 15 plus years. And at this stage of the game, I've gotten through all the Newtonian thought process. And now I'm like, no, there's more to health than just here's your supplements versus here's your pills. I mean, it's medication versus supplements. Unfortunately, in the naturopath industry and the functional medicine industry, we sometimes get a little crazy about how many supplements that someone needs.
Way crazy.
Over supplementing. And
over supplementing. Yeah. I speak about this often when I go address like a group of practitioners, is that the functional medicine got me more labels and more diagnostic limiting beliefs and more a monthly bill to Amazon than Western did, right? Western was like more or less covered. I wasn't finding benefit, but the world of functional medicine got me bigger monthly bills, and it did not get me necessarily better results. It was when I took in that intention piece, radical ownership of my story, my health, and really kind of like taking everything and mashing it together and then creating, my N equals one. That's where I've really seen benefit and growth and financial growth, expansion, and whatever you want to say. Yeah. Right. It's all an amplification of my energetic story as a human being for what, my 100 years, hopefully 110, 120, who knows?
I'm shooting for as many as I can get. I used to say 105, but then I was like, wait a minute, if I keep saying that, that's what's going to happen. I got to stop this. I'm going to as many as I can get here. But
as long as I feel good in my body and I can do all the things that I like to do. And I think that's really compelling. It's like quality health span is what I'm interested in, as opposed to many years.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Quality maybe over quantity, and as many as I can get where I feel good. That's the MO.
Yeah.
Well, let's tell folks where they can find Amp Coil, where they can find you, where they can find your podcast, all the things, so that they can run it all down the list. And of course, guys, I'll put it at drjkrauseND.com too.
Yeah, I would say the easiest thing to do is go to ampcoil.com, ampcoil.com, and just start exploring. Go to the How It Works page. There's a contact page in which you can book a meeting. You can ask your N equals one questions. Mm-hmm. There are discovery webinars every other Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Those are great spots to start learning, and then just jump on the Beautifully Broken podcast. The podcast is really I'm just launching a new site. So your marketing people are like, what is the podcast? Why do you do it? Tell me your why. And so I've gotten really clear on the why. The why is really the why is like the examining the hero's journey. I examine this hero's journey through metastatic cancer, through Lyme, through chemo, through mold, through biotoxin illness, through autoimmunity. And I'm looking at all the things that work for me, where I found value, where I think that I can save other people time and a little bit of heartache by sharing, my view. And just simply by sharing my experience, it's all through the lens of chronic illness. When I look at stem cells or Amp Coil or red light therapy or cold therapy, mm-hmm. it just happens through my lens. And because I'm not a medical provider, it's always from like a patient advocacy.
Yeah.
I just want to remind people that there's like so much you can do. I tell the story of me going to chemotherapy and eating double egg McMuffins with hash browns. That's what I ate. I had no idea of, I looked very healthy, but I had no idea of nutrition. It was very bro nutrition. I was like, protein shakes and like, just eat as much as you can and get to the gym and look ripped and you're good. Right. But I was in amazing shape when I really was diagnosed with cancer. So that kind of went out the window. And it's only through this learning of how much more there is.
Right.
And I think meeting people where they're at is really, that's the podcast. And I continue to have people on, trauma specialists, people that have been through I'm interviewing a woman today who's been, very, very successful businesswoman, one of the top entrepreneurs in the world. She's been the victim of sexual assault multiple times in the business world. So it's how has she managed to still be a high performer and unpack that emotional trauma from her life and still be effective? It could be anything in there. But I think when we share these stories, somebody's going to hear it. You're going to be like, oh my God, that's me. That's me. This is me. I'm struggling way more than I want to admit. Mm-hmm. I find that often I'll be doing a lot of things just to show up. I'm like, wow, I'm working really hard. How could this be easier? Maybe I need to do breath work and journal before I go to bed, as opposed to like Netflix for an hour and a half. Maybe I need to, like I mentioned, I'm really on this challenge step to try to be up longer before I caffeinate. It can be little things and they make a huge difference in your energy. And again, like how you spend your time on the planet. So that's the show. I'm super passionate about it. I really believe in it. And I think it's the most magical thing you can do is take radical ownership of your journey and stop saying, oh, I'll deal with that when I'm sick, or if this happens. You know, you could be one of those people out there that just really does, because we all know them that don't really experience anything from, they're like, oh, I've always been great, always been healthy, don't have to worry about it. I'm like, bless.
Yeah.
You know,
my goodness, bless you for lucky you. You think about that, but you also go, I mean, let's put it this way. It's always something really huge to just have the insight and know what you can do to prevent something, should that be a possibility, or optimize, because that what you're settling for, you might be able to feel even better. So yeah, that's where I sometimes run into it with folks. I'm like, what if you could feel better? What's expansion feel like? What is deepening your levels of joy and energy? And maybe that means giving back to people who are less fortunate than you. Maybe it means to solving the crisis that our oceans are in. Maybe it's solving the idea that there is no clean water on Earth anymore with microplastic. There's a lot of problems that need solving. So I think sometimes we can just get into the day to day. It's like, what's my, it's a whole nother podcast. I think we've got like 5 podcasts we're working on right here with different things. I know. I always go back. The world really needs people that really, really needs heroes right now. We need people to show up at their very best. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why we are, I think that's why we want to be well. Yeah. We need that's my reason anyway. That's what I've come up with on this Monday. Well said. We'll end it on that note. The world needs heroes. We need people like you that are feeling good and on top of the game. That's what we need to move forward and have this be a better place as a whole. All right, Freddie. Thank you so much for all of the info. I can't say enough about all of the good stuff that I've felt about the Amp Coil, and then also just listening into your podcast and everything. So folks, check out Freddie. We'll put all the notes in drjkrauseND.com in the podcast notes. You guys survived another one. Thanks, Freddie. I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate you and all the things that you're doing. We'll keep it going. Hey, fellow health junkie. Thanks for listening to the Health Fix podcast. If you enjoyed tuning in, please help support me to get the word out about the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review, and just get that word out. Thanks again for listening.